Brahmanda Purana, Part 1, Section 2, Anusanga Pada, Chapter 7, Knowledge of the World. Geographical divisions of the Earth. 4 yugas and their duration. Geography of continents, towns and villages, flora and fauna, people, castes and stages in life. Sutta said, he passed a period of time equal to 1,000 yugas as his night. At the end of the night, Brahma creates the universe through the cause, potentiality of creation. At that time, in that vast expanse of water, Brahma became wind and moved about in that ocean enveloped in darkness when the mobile and the immobile beings had already perished and became non-existent. He flooded the surface of the earth all round with water when the elements had been stationed in Satya, truth, along with their divisions. He moved about like the glowworm during the nights in the rainy season. The footnote says Vayu Purana 8.3 Samantat all round. He was moving about quickly as he pleased, thinking by means of his intellect about the means of stabilization. He was searching for the earth. He realized that the earth was within the water. After knowing that one of them was blind, the Lord, who was capable of lifting up the earth, assumed the truthful form of a boar as remembered in the beginnings of the previous kalpas. Then he entered the water. The Lord of subjects wished to contact the earth covered with waters. He lifted up the earth and placed it again along with its child. Reference to Naraka. The footnote says Vayu Purana reads Apas Tasu tu Vinyasan. He deposited the waters over the surface of the earth. He deposited the waters of the oceans in the ocean. He deposited the waters of the oceans in the oceans and the waters of the rivers in the rivers separately. After leveling the earth, he picked up and gathered the mountains. As the previous creation was being burned formerly by the Samvartaka fire, the mountains of that period had been melted by that fire. They were then scattered by the wind. Due to chillness, they became solidified. Wherever the molten rocks were split, there arose a mountain. They are called achalas, not moving or immobile, because their ridges were immovable. They are remembered as parvatas because they had parvans or giants. They are called giris because they had been swallowed. They are Shilotchaya because they had moved about Ayana. Then, after lifting up the earth from within the waters, the Lord created 7 times 7 subcontinents in its 7 continents. After leveling the uneven grounds, he created mountains all round by means of rocks. There are only 49 subcontinents in those continents. As many mountains, that is 49, are situated at the borders of the subcontinents. The footnote says these verses give etymology of the synonyms for a mountain. This Purana is full of semantic etymologies, that is etymologies based on the meaning of the word and not its form. Sometimes they are grammatically even as phonetic derivation correct, but that is none of the concern of the Purana writer. Thus, Achala, a mountain, Giri, Giri, is understandable, but Ayana, Ayanatu, Shilochaya, the mountains are called Shilochaya because of their movements, is phonetically not defensible. Every continent has 7 subcontinents. Thus, the number of subcontinents becomes 7 into 7, 49. Their list is described later in chapters 18 and 19. In heaven, etc., they are enveloped in splendor naturally and not otherwise. The 7 continents and oceans encircle one another. They are situated after surrounding one another naturally. The 4 worlds are the Bhu and others. As before, Brahma created the moon and the sun along with the planets as well as the immobile beings all round. As Brahma created the Devas of this Kalpa, who were sthanins, persons occupying the abodes, he created the following things as well: the waters, the fire, the earth, the wind, the firmament, the heaven, the those, the ethereal world, the quarters, the oceans, the rivers, the mountains, the souls of medicinal herbs, the souls of trees and creepers, the units of time such as lavas, kashtas, kalas, and muhurtas, the twilight, the nights, the days, the half months, the ayanas, transits, one in the 6 months, the years and the yugas. He created the abodes and the dwellers therein, who take pride in the abodes separately by laying claims to them. After creating the souls for the abodes, he created the period of yugas, namely Krita, Treta, Dwapara, and Tishya, that is Kali. At the beginning of the Kalpa, he created the subjects at the outset. Those subjects of the previous Kalpa have been recounted to you by me. In that Kalpa that was being dissolved, that is terminated, the subjects were burnt by the fire, those that had not reached Tapoloka, and those that remained on the earth return at the time of the subsequent creation for the sake of being visible. Those subjects who stay there for being visible do so for the sake of subsequent creation. The footnote says Vayu Purana 8.15 reads Sargadau Sanni Vishtas. They, mountains, were assembled there at the beginning of creation. This reading is better than that in the Brahmanda Purana here, as Swarga, heaven, is not relevant in the context. 55.23 FF. This is the inexorable law of karma. There may be the dissolution of the universe at the end of a kalpa, but the beings whose karmas have not been exhausted, that is, who have not attained moksha, are reborn in the subsequent kalpa. This idea has been emphatically repeated in this Purana. Being created, they exist for the sake of their progeny. They are regarded as having achieved the four Purusharthas, viz. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. The Devas, the Pitras, and the human beings are created in order. Thereafter, they equipped themselves with penance. They filled the abodes at the outset. Indeed, those human beings become Brahmanas and souls of spiritual achievement. Due to their karma contaminated by the faults of hatred and too much of attachment, they went to heaven. The footnote says, for Asanga Dvesha Yuktena, Vayu Purana 8 reads, Sangadvesha Yuktena, acts motivated by non-hatred. While returning in an embodied state, they are born in every yuga with the remnants of the fruits of their karman. They are born again and again. They are well known as Tadatmakas identified with them. The people bound by the advent of a new kalpa are born from the Janaloka. That which is their cause in the waters is indicated by means of the karman. From the Janaloka, they are born through auspicious and inauspicious karmans. They assume physical bodies of diverse forms in the different species. The subjects beginning with the devas and ending with the immobile beings are born, influencing themselves mutually. Their pure or sanctified karmans usually predominated. Therefore, they attained only those names and features which they had before. Again and again, they are born with names and forms in the different kalpas. Thereafter, in the creation of Brahma, who is desirous of creating the Upasrishti, subsidiary creation, even as he was meditating on those subjects, since he was of truthful meditation, 1,000 couples came out of his mouth. It is but natural that they were people of great brilliance with the sattva quality predominant. The footnote says place of residence should be known as its cause, etc. He created another 1,000 couples, though he created another 1,000 couples through his eyes. All of them had the rajas quality predominant. They were shushmins, lustrous ones, and amarsins, intolerant. He created 1,000 couples of asats, not good ones, from his arms, dominated as they were from rajas and tamas. They are remembered as griha shila, attached to houses. The couples alone gave birth frequently till the end of their lives. Kutakas, deceitful ones, and akutakas, non-deceitful, are born of those couples who are mortals about to die, since after generating the family they abandoned their bodies. Even since then there is the occurrence of copulation in this kalpa. In the Krita age, it is by mental meditation that pure objects of senses such as shabda, sound, and others, each of which is of 5 characteristics, became available. The footnote says 55.39 to 57 give a rosy picture of the Krita Yuga. Thus, with mental emotions, those subjects without progeny stay dear. So, also the families were born with which this universe was filled up. The footnote says the corresponding verse is Vayu Purana 8.46a reads Ityevam Manasi Purvam Prak Srishtir Ya Prajapatehe. In this way, formerly the preliminary creation was mental. After that, it was born of copulation. The whole world is filled with that. They resort to rivers, lakes, and oceans, as well as to mountains. Then those subjects have very little pleasure in that war, but they move in it. The footnote says Yuddhe in the text is strange. It should be Yuge. The corresponding verse in Vayu Purana reads Tada Nityambu Shitoshna Yuge, etc. They wandered, lived in that Yuga when there was no excess of heat, cold, or rain. They say that the earth with rasa, juice, water is their food. Desirous of mental siddhis, those subjects move about as they please. In the Krita Yuga, the subjects, human beings, etc., had equal length of life, happiness, and beauty. In the first Yuga, at the beginning of the Kalpa, there was no dharma and adharma. In every Yuga, they were born with their respective rights and authority. They say that the Krita Yuga at the beginning had 4,000 years in accordance with the reckoning of the gods. The two periods of junction consisted of 400 years. There were thousands of subjects of great repute. They had no hindrance anywhere. There were no mutually clashing opposites. There was no krama, one gradually succeeding another. Those subjects had no regular abodes and resorts. They were residents of mountains and seas. They were immune from sorrow. The quality called sattva was predominant in them. The subjects were exclusively happy. They always moved about as they pleased. They were always delighted in their minds. There were neither animals nor birds. There were no reptiles then. There were no plants, etc. There were no drunkards, mad and furious persons. This is the manner of dharma. For their sustenance there were flowers and fruits along with bulbous roots. The time was entirely and exclusively pleasant. It was neither too hot nor too chill. Whatever they desire is achieved everywhere and forever. By their meditations, everything grows up from the nether worlds through the earth. The vegetation caused strength and fineness of complexion unto them. It destroyed their sickness and old age. Those subjects had stable, everlasting youth with their bodies, not requiring purificatory rites. In their case, even without copulation, subjects, progeny, are born through mere mental conception. The birth and features are the same in regard to everyone. They are on a par with one another and they are pleased and happy. At that time there is truthfulness, absence of greed, satisfaction, happiness and self-control. In regard to beauty, longevity, aesthetic accomplishments and other activities, all of them are devoid of any mutual difference. The sustenance of the subjects was abuddhi purvika, without any conscious intellectual effort. Since the door is open, that is, there are facilities to auspicious and evil activities, there is lack of conscious effort. At that time, there was no systematic classification of castes and stages of life. There were no thieves. They used to deal with one another without any intimate desire or hatred. In the Krita Yuga, all the subjects are born with equal beauty, features, and span of life. They are devoid of inferiority and superiority. Usually, they are happy, they are free from sorrow. They have neither gain nor loss, neither friends nor enemies, no likes or dislikes, since they are devoid of desire. Their sense object functions mentally. They do not violently injure mutually, nor do they favor one another then. In the Krita Yuga, knowledge is the greatest thing. In the Treta, it is said to be the institution of yajna, sacrifice, as the greatest thing. In the Dwapara, war began to function, and in the Kali Yuga, it is stealth alone. The Krita Yuga is characterized by sattva quality, the Treta Yuga by rajas quality, the Dwapara by a mixture of rajas and tamas qualities, while the Kali only by tamas quality. Thus, the situation of the gunas in the yugas should be known. This is the time in the Krita Yuga. Understand the period of its junction. 4000 divine years constitute the Krita Yuga. The parts of its junction are 800 years according to divine reckoning. It comprises of 4000 human years. Then among them there are neither sudden clamor and outcry nor contrarieties. Then when that Krita Yuga along with the part of the junction has passed, the entire yuga dharma, duty, etc. characteristics of the yuga becomes reduced to a quarter. The footnote says, Vayu Purana 8.61a, a corresponding verse reads Krita Yuge Karmo Karmanoho for Krita Dware Karmanaha in the Brahmanda Purana, which is obscure. The verse means in the Krita Yuga, in the Krita age, there was no inclination both to pious and impious deeds. 55.59 to 60 give a comparative statement of the special features of four yugas. 55.61 to 71 describe the state in the period intervening between Krita and Treta. That is the time of junction of the yuga, the Sandhya, transitional period of what has passed off. Thus, when Sandhya Dharma, duty characteristics of the transitional stage from Krita Yuga, is reduced to a quarter, it vanishes within the Krita Yuga without any vestige. The footnote says the corresponding verse Vayu Purana 70b to 71a, when at the end of the yuga, when even the transitional period also expires, the quarter of the dharma characteristics of this transitional period of the yuga remains. When the junction has passed away, there was mental progeny. The achievement of spirituality was in another yuga called Treta, next to Krata. The 8 mental siddhis that had been recounted as existent by me in the beginning of the creation become reduced gradually. In the beginning of the kalpa, there is one single mental siddhi. In the Krita Yuga, in all the Manvantaras, in accordance with the division of the 4 yugas. The origin of karma siddhi, achievement of karman, in Krita is brought about by the conduct of the people of different castes and stages of life. The Sandhya junction of the Krita is reduced by a quarter. These parts of the junctions of Krita take up the 3 other parts, and those yuga dharmas as well as penance, learning, strength and longevity decreases and decline. When the Krita Yuga and its transitional part have passed, O excellent sages, it is the beginning of Treta Yuga along with its parts. When the part of Krita Yuga has passed off and those 7 siddhis remained lingering at the beginning of the Treta Yuga that had begun to function in the early part of the Kalpa, the one remaining siddhi perishes due to a flux of time and not otherwise. When that siddhi disappeared, another siddhi was born. Parts of waters returned to the firmament in the form of clouds. From the thundering clouds, the showering of rain began to function. When the surface of the earth had been perfected, watered by that rain occurring only once, the subjects came into being. Thereupon the trees became designated as their abodes. All kinds of worldly enjoyment of those subjects emanated from them, the trees. In the beginning of the Treta Yuga, the subjects maintained themselves with them. Then, after the lapse of a great deal of time, due to their own change, they had a sudden emotion in the form of a great desire for close contact. In the case of women of the modern days, menstruation occurs till the end of their life. But then, that is in the Treta Yuga, that did not take place on account of the power of the Yuga. But in the case of those women of later days, the menstrual flow began to function month by month. As a consequence thereof, sexual intercourse also takes place then. They had the physical contact every month because of their emotional feelings at that time. When there is no menstrual flow at the proper time, the conception took place. On account of their contrary nature, all those trees designated as their abodes and evolved at that time perished thereafter. When they had perished, the subjects became bewildered and agitated in all their sense organs. They began to meditate on their siddhi. They were truthful in their meditation then. Those trees designated as their abodes appeared in front of them. They yielded clothes, fruits, and ornaments. Similarly, honey of great potency of metaphysical significance was produced in every leafy cup. It was accompanied by the juice of Gandharvas. Gandharvanam Rasanvitam. In Brahmanda Purana, it should be Gandhavarna Rasanvitam. The footnote says Anvikshikam in Brahmanda Purana should be Amakshikam with no flies in it. The verse contains misprints. The original verse seems to be as in Vayu Purana 8.90. Those subjects maintained themselves with that at the beginning of Treta Yuga. With that siddhi, they became hale, hearty, and well nourished. They were free from feverish ailments. Thereafter, on other occasions also, the subjects became overwhelmed by greed. Thus, once again, they seized the trees and took by force the nectar and honey. On account of this misdemeanor on their part, brought about by their covetousness, the kalpa trees, wish yielding trees, perished here and there along with the Lord. The footnote says the honey was endowed with good flavor, color, and taste and had no flies in it. Vayu Purana 8.93b Madhuna along with the honey. When that achievement Siddhi was reduced to a very little quantity with the passage of time, they maintained themselves with this. Their dvandvas, rivalries or mutual opposites, rose up tremendously. The chillness, the wind, and the sunshine were severe. Therefore, they were much tormented. Being afflicted by the mutually opposed pairs of feelings and reactions, they bewailed their wounds. The footnote says Vayu Purana 8.95 Chakrur Avaranani cha created shelters and covers. They had been vexed in their minds when formerly they had no abodes. They were wandering about as they pleased. After building houses to remedy the evil effects of dvandvas like heat and cold, they stayed in the abodes as they pleased, as they could secure. When they had no abodes, they resorted to difficult passages in mountains and on rivers, dripping with honey, in plains and even in hilly regions where water was available. They lived as they pleased and as much as they could enjoy. They began to build those abodes in order to ward off cold blizzards and hot winds. Thereafter, they built hamlets and cities. The footnote says Madhu Dhunvatsu in the text is absurd in context. Vayu Purana 8.97, a corresponding verse appropriately reads Marudhwan Vasu in sandy deserts and wildernesses. They build villages and cities with their due shares, extent and dimensions, and built other settlements as well, in accordance with their knowledge. After measuring with their own fingers in the beginning, they made thereafter other units also for the sake of measurement. The footnote says 55.96 to 101 give the units of measurements of distance as follows: Angula, finger breadth. Thus, 10 angula equals pradesha, 12 angulas Vitasti 21 angulas, Ratni 24 angulas, Hasta 2 Ratnis or 42 angulas, Kikshu 4 Hastas, Dhanus or Danda 2000 Dhanus, Gavyuti 7000 Dhanus, Yojana. With angulas, finger width as the basis, they made the units Pradesha, Hasta, Kikshu, and Dhanus. 10 joints of the fingers, angulas, constitute what is called Pradesha. The space delimited by the tips of the extended thumb and index finger is called Pradesha. The same way with the tip of the extended middle finger is remembered as Tala. The same with the tip of the extended ring finger is Gokarana. The same with the tip of the extended small finger is called Vitasti. It has 12 angulas. 21 angulas make the unit Ratni. 24 angulas make 1 Hasta. 2 Ratnis or 42 angulas make a Kikshu. 4 Hastas make 1 Dhanus or Danda. The same is a pair of arrows. Nalikas 2000 Dhanus make 1 Gavyuti. This had been made by them then. 8000 Dhanus make 1 Yojana as determined by them. With this Yojana as the unit of measurement, settlements, that is colonies, were made thereafter. Among the 4 types of fortresses, 3 are natural and the 4th type of fort is artificial. I shall mention its decisive features. It has a thick elevated rampart, especially a surrounding wall elevated on a mound of earth with cavities or openings. It is surrounded with a moat on all sides. It has a beautiful front door and a gymnasium in which girls are kept. The moat's 2 hastas in breadth are excellent in the case of the Kumari Pura. The total breadth of the current of water in the moat may be 8, 9 or 10. The footnote says the corresponding verse in Vayu Purana 8.110 runs as follows. Different opinions about the breadth of the moat in front of Kumari Pura are given here as 2, 8, 9, 10 hastas, the last being the best. I shall mention the girth and length of hamlets, cities and villages entirely, as well as those of the 3 types of natural forts, viz. Mountains, waters, that is rivers, and wastelands such as deserts, etc., and the artificial forts as well. The diameter shall be half a yojana. Its length shall be 1 and 1/8 yojanas. The footnote says 55.105 to 116 delineate the ancient ideas of town and village planning. The extent of a Pura city shall be half of the maximum length. There must be a river flowing to its east or north. It should be divided into a hypotenum and segments. It must be laid out in the shape of a spread fan. A city that is long, diamond shaped, or circular is not praiseworthy. A city endowed with the symmetrical parts and quadrangles and heaven like commendable was made by them. The Vastu, site of a building, dwelling place that is not more than 24 hastas is short. That of 108 hastas is great. In this matter, they praise the middle one and the short one, which has no wooden structure. The chief settlement should be 800 kishkus. The hamlet should be of half the diameter of the city. The pana, drinking place, shall be above it. The hamlet shall be a yojana. about 12 kilometer from the city, and the village shall be half a yojana from the hamlet. The outermost boundary shall be 2 kroshas. 1 krosha equals 3 kilometers. The boundary of a field is 4 dhanus. The footnote says Vayu Purana 7.116b. In the corresponding verse reads Gramam for Panam of the Brahmanda Purana. It means a grama should be beyond that. The pathway along the quarters, that is east, west, and north, south, was made 20 dhanus wide by them. The road in the village was also 20 dhanus wide. The path in the boundary was only 10 dhanus wide. The glorious royal road was made 10 dhanus wide. The movement of traffic of men, horses, chariots, and elephants shall be without any hindrance. The branch streets were measured by them and made 4 dhanus wide. The roads joining the highways shall be 3 dhanus wide, and their branches 2 dhanus wide. The Jangapatha, the Thai road, has 4 pathas width. The passage between rows of houses is 3 quarters wide. Dhriti Marga, path of carriage, if more than 1/6. The Padika, footpath, is remembered thus in due order. The footnote says Jangha Patha is probably a misprint of Ghanta Patha, a bell road. That is the chief road through a village or a highway. Pada equals 15 fingered breadth. Vritti Marga in Vayu Purana 8.121. The enclosure for excrement in a quarter all round. After those places have been made, the houses and dwellings should be constructed. They thought over it again and again about the trees designated as their houses, as to how they were before, and began to build like them. The footnote says 55.117 to 121 referred to construction of buildings. It is interesting to note that the Sala tree played an important part in ancient ideas of housing. The branches of trees have gone down, others have gone this way, still others have gone up. In the same way, some have gone obliquely. With their intellect, they have observed carefully how the branches have gone. Apartments were constructed by them in the same way. Hence, the apartments, are remembered as salas. Thus, salas, apartments, dwellings became well known from the branches. So also the abodes. Therefore, they are remembered as salas. That is remembered as their salatva, state of being sala. The footnote says popular but important etymology of sala, an apartment or dwelling. Since people are delighted therein, prasidanti, they are designated as prasadas. They are designated as prasadas, palaces. Therefore, the abodes, apartments, and palaces are designated as prasadas. The footnote says etymology of prasada, a palace. When the wish-yielding kalpa trees perished along with the honey, the subjects attached by the dvandvas, mutual opposed pairs of feelings, etc., began to think about the means of agriculture and other occupations for livelihood. The subjects created were seen agitated due to exhaustion and sorrow. Thereafter, the Siddhi appeared in front of them in the Treta Yuga. Another type of rain became the means of achieving all objects for them. The waters of the rain were sweet and were as much as they wished for. Thus, a new way of life and conduct began to function during the creation of the second type of rain. Due to the contact of the earth with the small collections of water that gathered together on the surface of the earth, the medicinal herbs began to grow. Those medicinal herbs began to put forth blossoms, roots, and fruits. The 14 types of lands in villages and forests began to flourish without being plowed and without the seeds being sown. The trees and the bushes put forth flowers and fruits at the proper seasons. In the Treta Yuga, medicinal herbs and plants began to appear themselves on the earth. In the beginning of the Treta Yuga, the subjects sustained themselves with those plants and herbs. The footnote says 55 128 FF show the prevalence of food gathering economy in the Treta Yuga. The evolution of four Varnas is another sociological feature of this Yuga. Thereafter, due to the inevitability of affairs and due to the Treta Yuga, those subjects began to have passion and covetousness forever. Then they forcibly seized rivers, fields, mountains, trees, bushes, and medicinal herbs as much as they could in accordance with their strength. Previously, I have already explained to you about the spiritually enlightened souls in the Krita Yuga. They were born as mental sons of Brahma and they had come here to the earth from the Janaloka. They were quiescent, lustrous Karmins, devoted to the pursuit of holy rites and unhappy and dejected. Returning from there, that is Janaloka, they were born again in the Treta Yuga. In the previous births, due to the glory of their auspiciousness, that is meritorious acts as well as sins, they were conceived as Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras, and malicious people. Then among them some became powerful, truthful in conduct, non-violent, devoid of greed, and persons who had conquered their selves. They used to abide by those that were remembered Smriti texts. They never accepted charity. Their tasks were carried out by those who were weaker than they. These weaker people approached them, speaking to them. Those others who were less brilliant than they remained serving them. Thus, when they were mutually related and also resorted to each other due to that fault, the medicinal herbs diminished much then. Like sands, they perished on being held in the fists. Then, due to the power of the Yuga, the 14 types of people, animals, etc., villages and forests began to pluck and destroy, and flowers, fruits, and roots of those trees. Then, when they perished and subjects became perplexed, all of them were overwhelmed with hunger. Then they went to the self-born deity, that is Brahma. In the beginning of the Treta Yuga, those subjects desired for some means of livelihood. The self-born Lord Brahma knew their desire. He pondered over this situation by means of his vision that can see everything directly. He understood that the medicinal herbs have been devoured, that is drawn within by the earth. He made them grow once again. The footnote says Vayu Purana 8.141 reads Smateshu Vai. For Brahmanda Purana text here, Smritesu Vai. As the question of memory or Smriti text does not arise here, Vayu Purana reading is better. After making the Sumeru mountain as the calf, he milked this earth in the form of a cow that yielded seeds on the surface of the earth in the form of the milk. The Lord made those seeds grow as the medicinal herbs and other plants that ended when the fruits became ripe. That is, the plants yielded fruits but once and then they perished, their group of 17. The following types of 17 grains and pulses constitute the group of 17, viz. Rice, barley, wheat, Bengal gram, gingerly, priyangu, long pepper, udara, koradusta, a kind of grain eaten by the poor people, that is kodrava, vamaka, the black gram, the green gram, the masura, dal, nivara, rice, the horse gram, the harika, and the charaka. The footnote says this is the Puranic presentation of the ancient Vedic concept of milking the Viraj cow, recorded in AV point 8 Sukta 10. Purana writers use this motif later with god Brahma, King Prithu, etc. as the milker. Funnily enough, Matsya Purana 10.25 makes Vararuchi as the milker and the signs of drama Targi Natya Veda as the milk. Here, god Brahma milked seeds of medicinal herbs and plants. Men gathered food from them for their livelihood. Vayu Purana 8.152a reads Adhakyas Chanakas Chaiva, which means the pulse, Chajanus indicas, spring, as well as chickpeas. Thus these were remembered as the species of rural medicinal herbs, Gramya Oshadhi. Siamaka, a variety of rice, Nivara, another variety of rice, Jaratila, wild, Sisemam, Gavedhuka, Kuruvenda, a king of barley, Nenuyava, bamboo seeds, Tamatirakataka, etc. are remembered as the 14 types of medicinal herbs of the villages and forests. All these 14 varieties of medicinal herbs and plants peculiar to villages and forests grew at the beginning of the first Treta Yuga. They are not grown by plowing. The trees, hedges, creepers, winding plants, spreading creepers, and various species of grasses yielded roots, fruits, shoots, etc. unto them. They plucked their fruits. The footnote says a misprint for Tatha Markatas Chaye. CF Vayu Purana 8.154 as MW gives no word like Tamatirkataka. Markataka is a species of grain. Vayu Purana 8.149 reads Pushpai for Pustaha. Those seeds which were milked out of the earth formerly by the self-born Lord began to grow as medicinal herbs, putting forth flowers and fruits as the proper seasons. Putting forth flowers and fruits at the proper seasons. When the medicinal herbs created before did not grow and flourish again, he made means of livelihood for them by means of agricultural occupations. The self-born Lord blessed them with the power of working with their own hands and achieving great results. Thenceforth, the medicinal herbs became Krishta Pachyas, plowed and grown. After achieving his purpose in the matter of agricultural occupation, the Prajapati, lord of the subjects, that is God Brahma, established the bounds of decency by means of which they protected one another. Among them, some were very powerful, and they seized the realm. He established them as Kshatriyas, and it was their duty to protect others. All those subjects who had been created will be worshipping you. Tell the truth in accordance with the fact. Those subjects who said this were the Brahmanas. Some stood by in the activity of protecting others who were weak. They destroyed Ketas, worms. They were established on the earth. The people called them Vaishyas and cultivators of soil. They were the achievers of livelihood. Those who were engaged in the service of others, those who ran errands and served others, were devoid of brilliance and deficient in virility. Since they were deficient, they served others. He called them Shudras. Lord Brahma ordained and prescribed their respective duties and holy rites. The footnote says 55.151 FF described the transition from food gathering economy to the food growing one by the introduction of agriculture. This stage crystallized the fourfold classification of the society with their specific duties. White 55 161 to 165 below. Vayu Purana 8.162a gives a better reading. So long all those who worship or respect and obey those Kshatriyas, they are free from fear. Although the establishment of the classification into the four castes had been made by him, Lord Brahma, the subjects out of delusion did not conform to those rules. The subjects who lived in accordance with the duties of the different castes became antagonistic to one another. Lord Brahma understood everything factually. He ordained that meting out punishments, maintenance of armies, and waging wars should be the means of sustenance for the Kshatriyas. Performance of yajnas, teaching of the Vedas, and acceptance of charitable and monetary gifts. Lord Brahma prescribed these as the holy duties and rights for those Brahmanas. Breeding of cattle, carrying on trading activities, and cultivation of the soil, he granted these to the Vaishyas. Again, he ordained that arts and crafts should be the means of livelihood for the Shudras. To the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, he prescribed the common duty of performing yajna and studying the Vedas, as well as giving charitable gifts. To the others, the common duty ordained was performance of their duties for livelihood. After prescribing these duties and holy rites, the Lord ordained their abodes in the other worlds above. The Prajapatya, the Prajapatya, the belonging to Prajapati or Brahma world is remembered as the abode of the Brahmanas who perform their holy rites and duties. The world belonging to Indra is the abode of Kshatriyas who never flee from the battlefield. The abode of the Vaishyas who sustain themselves by their respective duties is the Maruta world, that is the world belonging to the wind god. The abode of the Shudras who abide by their duty of rendering service is the world belonging to the Gandharvas. These are the abodes after death of the people of the different castes who remain good and maintain the conduct of life befitting their respective station in life. When this mode of disciplined life of the four castes had been well established, the people of the different castes strictly adhered to the duties of their respective castes because they were afraid of punishment otherwise. Then, after the castes had been established, he stabilized the stages of life. The Lord established as before the following four ashramas, stages in life, viz. The householder, the celibate religious student, the forest hermit, and the ascetic. The people of the four castes perform the duties of the respective castes. After doing their duties, they erected their residences and maintained their stages of life and then enjoyed themselves. Brahma established those ashramas. He directed and guided those who swerved from these and recounted righteous virtues to them. He instructed them in the methods of self restraint, observances, and controls of sense organs, etc. Among the four castes, the stages of the life of a householder stood at the outset because it was the source of origin for the sustenance of the other three ashramas, stages of life. I shall mention the duties in due order along with the holy vows and observances. The footnote says 55, 169 to 189 describe the duties of the four ashramas or stages in life. CF Tesham Grihastho Yonir Aprajana Twavad Itaresam Gautama Dharma Sutra 3.3. The following are the duties of the householder in brief: marriage, maintenance of sacrificial fire, hospitality to guests, performance of yajnas, and continuation of his race, procreation. The duties of the religious student are as follows: he must wear the girdle of the munja grass and hold the staff. He must wear the skin of an antelope. He must sleep on the ground. He must serve his preceptor. He must beg for alms. He must be eager to acquire learning. These are the duties of the forest hermits. Wearing barks and leaves or skins of antelope for clothes, maintaining themselves by means of roots, fruits, and medicinal herbs found in the forests. Bathing both at dawn and dusk are performance of Homa. The duties of the mendicant recluse are as follows: he must beg for alms when the noise of pestles has died down. He must not steal. He must maintain cleanliness. He must not err or be elated. He must refrain from sexual intercourse. He must have mercy on all living beings. He must have forbearance. He must listen to the instruction of the preceptor. He must serve the preceptor. He must be truthful. The righteous conduct of 10 items as enumerated above was laid down by the self-born Lord as the duty of a recluse. 5 of them pertain to bhikshus, viz. Begging, knowledge of Vedas, and religious vows. He mentioned their abodes after death as well as ashushmi, absence of luster. There are 88,000 sages who live in perpetual celibacy. The place remembered as there is alone the abode of those who live with their preceptor, that is brahmacharins. The place remembered as the abode of the 7 sages. The great bear is assigned as that of the forest dwellers. The world of Prajapati is the abode of householders, and Brahma's abode in that of the ascetics. The abode of the yogins has not been created. Without conquering them, it does not exist. Those abodes of the persons of different stages of life are indeed in the abode of Brahma. The footnote says Vayu Purana 8.196 corresponding verse reads as follows: Yoginam Amratam Sthanam Nanadhinam Na Vidyate. Immortal Amritam is the abode of yogins, which is not meant for non-yogins. Only four paths have been created as Deva Yanas, paths of the Devas. Only four paths are remembered as Pitra Yanas, paths of the mens. Formerly, in the first Manvantara, these had been created by Brahma, who administered the worlds. Ravi, the sun, is remembered as the entrance to those paths that are known as Devayanas. The moon, Chandramas, is mentioned as the entrance of Pitrayanas. Thus, even though the castes and stages of life had been clearly defined, the subjects adhering to the duties of the different castes did not flourish. Then, in the middle of Treta Yuga, he evolved another mental creation from the bodies of his own self and similar to himself. In that first Treta Yuga, when it gradually reached its middle period, he began to create mental progeny other than what was before. Then the same Lord created the subjects with predominating sattva and rajas qualities. They had the pursuit of virtue, dharma, wealth, love, and liberation, and they accomplished their professions for livelihood. They were the Devas, the Pitras, the sages, and the Manus, that is, human beings. In regard to their characteristics, they were in accordance with the respective yugas. By these, the subjects in the universe flourished. Formerly, I had mentioned to you about those people who, in the previous kalpa, resorted to Janaloka, as when he meditated upon them, all these created beings approached him for the purpose of being born again. In the course of Manvantvaras, they were first junior most. They were well renowned by the people of their race. The footnote says Vayu Purana reads Adhinartham Pragyanam cha Atmano Vai Vinirmame. For the control of the subjects, it is reported that he created himself. They were all renowned by the people of their race. They had all the faculties of cleverness or otherwise unimpaired. They had minor calamities due to the defect of the fruits of their own activities. Those who were present consisted of devas, asuras, pitras, yakshas, gandharvas, human beings, rakshasas, pishachas, animals, birds, reptiles, trees, worms of hells, etc. For the sake of food of the subjects, he created Vidatmans, knowing souls.